Hi! So this week's assignment was to upload a video explaining two things that we found interesting from the textbook and from both of the TED Talk presentations. So I'll be starting out with norming on page 242 of the textbook, and I found a quote that said, "Group roles solidify based on individual member strength," which I found to be very true, because whether you're in a group in academically, like in college or high school, or in a workplace, you assign a leader based on their leadership qualities. So I found that to be very interesting. And then I also kind of found it a little bit funny how the textbook said that this is where leaders emerge, but it's also kind of where floaters can come about, because if you have a leader and the rest of the group assigned a task, floaters can kind of just take a little bit of what everyone else contributes and then just put their own name on it. And so I found that very interesting. That's just kind of my own little spin on what it had to say. And then the next one that I'll be talking about is assertiveness and argumentativeness on page 259. I found this very interesting because the quote said that argumentativeness is, and I quote, "verbally attacking positions that people take," unquote. And I found that a little bit interesting because just in every argument that you have, most times you are verbally attacking them, but sometimes you're not. Sometimes you can just put your opinion there and then leave. But I think what the textbook was saying is that in this group situation, you're being argumentative by trying to verbally belittle or demean the person that you're attacking to make yourself seem a little bit bigger. So that's kind of what I took away from that, and I thought that was interesting. So done with the textbook, let's go on to the Tower TED Talk, which I have seen many times in high school, just in psychology and every other class that I've had to take. I've watched this many times, but I'm going to talk about how the kindergartners are better at building the tower. That happened around 210 in the video. He was saying that the kindergartners are better at building the tower, and I think that's because he explained it to be that they don't have to think, because they don't want to be the CEOs of Spaghetti Tower Inc. And I thought that was an interesting quote, because it's true, they're not trying to be the CEOs, but I also think that they're not really trying to compete with each other to be the best, because they're not really exposed to that yet in the workplace or in like higher academics. But I thought that was a little bit interesting, and it kind of perked my ears a little bit. Another one is that I thought that it was interesting that you needed somebody to facilitate. You needed somebody to designate, like a leader. You needed somebody to say, okay, your job is to do this and yours is to do that. I found that very, very simple, and everyone knows that, but I thought that it was interesting for somebody to lay that out and say that. Another thing that I found interesting was at 521, when he talked about the business women and men that were given the incentive of, I forget how much money it was, but they were given an incentive of software money and how much they were to give if they had won the tower building competition, and none of them could do it because the stakes were too high. And then whenever they came back months later, they all fulfilled their wildest tower dreams. And so I thought that was really interesting, that whenever people are given like an ultimatum or an incentive, they'll perform way better than you would think that they would. And so it's very, very true in life and in workplace. And so I thought that was interesting to be laid out right there in like an experiment with such powerful men and women and kindergartners. And then another one in the Good Leaders TED Talk that I found interesting was, we feel more safe, like when we feel more safe, we're more comfortable. And I found that a little bit interesting, because just being a college student and just working at like a minimum wage job serving tables, I feel much more comfortable when tables tell me what they want, because it's easy. It's easier for me. I feel safe. And whenever my managers come up to me and then they tell me what to do, they tell me what they expect from me, but they also tell me that they're there. It makes me feel very safe and comfortable in this situation, because I know that there's someone above me and people below me, and I'm in a nice middle, and nobody is upsetting me. And so at 510 of the video, he said, "We like having leaders. We trust them to have our best interests." And so I thought that was very interesting, because it was talking about how we shouldn't fear our leaders, because if you fear our leaders, we're not going to be very comfortable and our work performance will not be very good. And so I found that very, very, very interesting, because just take everyday work life, for example. Like, if you don't have a good manager or boss or coworker or anyone above you or below you or whatever, you're not going to perform well, because you don't feel safe. You don't feel like you're getting anything from it. And so I found that interesting. And then the quote at 822 said, "Great leaders would never sacrifice the people for the numbers, to save the numbers, sorry." And I thought that was interesting, because in every good job, the managers or bosses or CEOs or corporate men or men and women, whatever you want to put as your leader, they don't want to get rid of the people just to save money or anything that they could possibly benefit from getting rid of someone. They want to help you, because you're an asset. You don't want to get rid of them. And so I just found that very interesting. I found the fact that people work together, work better sometimes, not always, but sometimes, work better in groups, because we like leaders, we like leadership, we like authority, because we don't want to feel unsafe, but we also don't want to be left to our own devices, because that could not be good. And so I just found this very interesting, and I found that there were many conflicts and groups that I had no idea about until I looked into this chapter. So I'm very grateful that I got to be exposed to this. So yes, I think that's all. Thank you.